welcome back for another deep dive into Course in Miracles.
Always a pleasure to be back.
So yesterday we were looking at how our thoughts can actually shape our entire experience of reality. And today we're going to kind of continue on that thread and explore how that impacts basically how we perceive the world, and then how all of that impacts our emotions. I think we touched upon this idea of perceptual distortion a little bit last time. But
Yeah, it's a really it's a fascinating concept.
it is. It really is. And it's something that, it can be a little tricky at first, but once you sort of wrap your head around it, it can be incredibly powerful, I think.
Absolutely.
So today we're diving into lesson 12.
Okay.
And I'm just going to go ahead and read it word for word here, and then we can kind of jump into the discussion. All right. So, lesson 12. I am upset because I see a meaningless world. The importance of this idea lies in the fact that it contains a correction for a major perceptual distortion. You think that what distresses you is a frightening world, or a sad world, or a violent world, or even an insane world. All of these attributes are given it by you. The world is meaningless in itself. So much to unpack there, right?
There really is. I mean, just that first line, I am upset because I see a meaningless world. You know, that's something that I think a lot of people can relate to on some level, whether they realize it or not.
Yeah, totally. And then, then it goes on to talk about, this whole idea of perceptual distortion.
Right, and how we tend to see the world as being inherently, frightening or sad or whatever. But it's saying that those qualities, they aren't actually inherent to the world itself. They're projections. We're the ones assigning those meanings.
We are totally, I don't know, it's almost like we're looking at the world through these colored glasses.
Yeah.
And the color of the glasses is determined by our thoughts and beliefs and past experiences and all that.
Absolutely. I think that's a great analogy. It's like we're not seeing the world as it is. We're seeing the world as we are.
It's so true. So true. And it's not always, it doesn't always make us feel good, obviously.
No, definitely not. But the thing is, once you realize that you're the one holding the brush, so to speak, you can start to change the painting.
Right. And I think that's where this idea of the world being meaningless, it starts to become empowering rather than depressing.
Exactly, because if the world is meaningless in itself, then that means that we have the power to give it meaning. We're not stuck with some predetermined, scary or sad reality. We can create our own.
We can. We absolutely can. So, I think we've talked a lot about the theory behind this, but the lesson also offers us a practical exercise to actually apply this understanding in our everyday lives. And I love how simple it is.
Me too.
It says, look about you, this time quite slowly. Try to pace yourself so that the slow shifting of your glance from one thing to another involves a fairly constant time interval. What you see does not matter. You teach yourself this as you give whatever your glance rests on equal attention and equal time.
So it's really all about just slowing down and paying attention to what's actually around us without all the usual judgment labeling that we usually do.
Right. And it's not about trying to force ourselves to see everything as positive or anything like that. It's more about just seeing things as they are without all the extra baggage we usually bring to the table.
Exactly. And the more we practice this, the more we start to realize that, there's actually a lot of beauty and wonder in the world that we normally miss because we're so caught up in our heads.
Totally. I think it's so easy to get, caught up in the drama of everything, just the other day I was having lunch with a friend, and someone at a nearby table was talking really loudly on their phone. And I could just feel myself getting so irritated, judging them for being inconsiderate and rude and just letting it completely ruin my lunch.
Oh, yeah, I've definitely been there.
It's funny because, if I had really stopped and looked at the situation objectively, there was nothing inherently wrong with what was happening. It was just someone talking on their phone. But it was my thoughts about it, my judgment, that created all that negativity and spruce.
Exactly. And that's what the exercise in this lesson is helping us to see, right? It's like, okay, I think I see a rude person talking loudly on their phone. But is that really what's happening? Or am I just projecting my own judgments onto the situation?
It's so subtle how that works, though, right?
It really is. But once you start to become aware of it, you can start to catch yourself in the act, so to speak. And then you have a choice. You can choose to continue going down that rabbit hole of negativity, or you can choose to step back and see things differently.
And that's where the real freedom comes in, I think.
Absolutely.
So how can we apply this to, even more concrete situations?
I think a good example is, let's say you've been working really hard on a project, right?
Yeah.
And you're super excited about it. And then it gets rejected.
Oof. Yeah.
You know, a lot of people might immediately see that as a failure. They might get caught up in the disappointment and maybe even start questioning their abilities.
The self-criticism, yeah.
Exactly. But if you can remember the principles of this lesson, you can choose to see it differently, right?
Yeah.
You can choose to view it as a learning experience. Maybe the feedback you receive can help you improve your work for next time.
Yeah, that's a really good way to frame it.
And even if the feedback isn't particularly helpful, you can still choose to see the rejection as simply a step in the process, not a reflection of your worth as a person.
Right, right. I love that. I think that's so important to remember. Because it's so easy to like personalize everything, you know?
It really is. But the truth is, most things in life are just neutral events. It's our thoughts about them that give them meaning.
And the more we practice this, the more peaceful and joyful our lives become, I think.
Definitely. It's not about becoming some emotionless robot, you know? It's about learning to experience the full range of human emotions, but without letting them control us.
Exactly. And it's a practice. It's not something that happens overnight, right?
Absolutely. It's a lifelong journey, really. But it's a journey worth taking, for sure.
So well said. So I think the big takeaway from today's deep dive is that, you know, the world is kind of like a blank canvas. We have the power to choose how we experience it. We can be victims of our perceptions, or we can become like artists of our own reality.
Yeah, I love that. And remember, the key is to practice. The more we apply these principles in our daily lives, the more peace and joy we'll experience.
So true. Well, thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive today. And I hope you'll join us again tomorrow as we continue our journey with Lesson 13.
Looking forward to it.
Awesome. See you then.
See ya.
I woke up to a miracle today.